It's my pleasure to welcome you here to the Clark Howard Show. Our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so you make better financial decisions in your life. Well, I'm fully back watching TV because it's football. And that means I'm seeing a lot of commercials. And coming up later, I'm going to talk about what I'm seeing that you need to really think through is they're using that to brainwash you to do things I don't want you to do. But right now, it's time for my favorite thing we do every week. It's time for Clark Stinks.
I should have never encouraged you to speak.
You must think I'm pretty stupid.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you're right, pal.
Boy, I stink. I didn't have the Clark Stink sounder up. You had to do that.
Did I do it
last
right?
second? You did. I'm sorry about that. All right. Greg in Oregon wrote in with this one. You stink like burnt gear oil. On a podcast, you said to try different antennas to find one that works. On the internet, you can find what size antennas you need to receive the signal and even the direction you need to point them in. One of the websites I've used is antennaweb.org. Love your cheapness. Keep it up.
Thank you very much, Greg. Antenna Web's what I use too. But even with Antenna Web, I live in a city and I find with rolling hills, and I find that Antenna Web is not always completely accurate. It'll give me a good idea of what Antenna Web will do. It'll show you what you can watch and whether you need a rooftop antenna or what rated power range you need for one if you're going to have an in-home antenna. If you live in a high-rise, obviously it's got to be one of those. But it's so great having the antennas because we're going to talk later about my obsession with football. Mm-hmm. But the picture I'm getting is so much better than what you get with streaming or with if you still have old-fashioned cable. It's crazy if you can pull that signal in, you see the game, whatever sport you love, so much better.
Speaking of streaming, by the way, also you're slated to talk about streaming on Monday too. So we're getting lots of information on watching TV these days. Kevin in Hawaii says, Aloha, Clark. I don't think you're wrong. The cost of living is much higher in Hawaii. It's not for everyone. You must make changes and spend wisely. I hear that you would like to move to Hawaii. Other than for personal family reasons, why wouldn't you? I don't need heat or AC at all and grow some of my own food. I don't have an electric bill. Water is not expensive, and you can catch it as well. Gasoline is used less. You don't need a snow shovel or winter clothes. You can even podcast from here. Just make sure you have solar and a Tesla battery.
I love Hawaii. So for Lane, the dogs have to go through a special process and quarantine and all that. And she's freaked out about that. And then we're so far from the kids and the grandkids. And so I'd love to live in Hawaii at least several months a year. Been negotiating that for a while. Have not been successful in that negotiation yet.
Pete in Massachusetts says, you said that New Hampshire was about, quote, 40% cheaper than living in Massachusetts. Though this may be true, it depends on what cities you're comparing. If you want to be on the border of Mass in New Hampshire, you'll pay nearly the same housing costs as if you lived in Mass. If you lived in northern New Hampshire, you would have save more, but you could also save more by moving to western Massachusetts. Living in New Hampshire, you save on taxes, but other costs like housing and groceries will not necessarily be 40% cheaper, depending on where you choose to live.
Thank you for that post. The migration to the border areas that still keep you basically in the Boston metro area. The people who've done so for taxes usually, but
they do call it Taxachusetts.
Taxachusetts, yeah. But what you say is completely true. That with that, the housing costs have, as a result, gone up.
Okay, RJ in Georgia says, Clark, your advice about getting foreign currency from an ATM when you arrive at your destination is great, but you did not warn us about the extra 10 to 15% markup charged by so many ATMs. I skipped the airport ATM because I had 70 euros in my wallet, but now I'm wandering around Paris trying to find an ATM without a big, huge, giant junk fee. The best I've found has been 10%, and I'm trying to make do with my last few euros and a credit card. Where's the best place to take money out? The airport? Specific banks? My sister-in-law is about to travel to Europe for the first time by herself, and I sent her your video. But now I feel like I need to solve this so she isn't stuck paying big fees in Italy. Thank you, Clark, for all your great advice. I'm down to my last euro.
All right, RJ, I feel terrible. Lane and I, my wife and I, just went to Paris, and what I did was I went to a bank and used their ATM in Paris. And when you go to an ATM so often in Europe, this is something we explained last year on a podcast. So a lot of times they'll say, do you want your money converted in euro or in dollars? You always say euro. And as a general rule, then there won't be junk fees. But you're right. If you go to a non-bank ATM in Europe, or you go to one typically in an airport, they're going to charge you these really junky junk fees. Now, in addition, this doesn't help you since you're already there, but if you check with your bank or credit union provider of an ATM, they will usually have an electronic list on their website or on their app that'll show you what ATMs you can use in various countries around the world, that you'll not have any junk fees using those ATMs. We took out 250 euro at an ATM. How many do we still have after 8 days in France?
150.
We have 244 because everywhere we went, we used tap to pay, except twice when I had to have some euro.
I do know also, it's been mentioned before on the podcast, USAA and Schwab refund the ATM fees.
Schwab Unlimited number, USAA, I think, has a cap on how many ATM charges they'll rebate.
And so I would check with your credit union.
But it's not just, this isn't what we're talking about. This isn't the ATM fees.
Okay, it's just extra.
This is rip-off charges that are now embedded on more and more ATMs around the world, where they charge you a discriminatory exchange rate. And the key to beating that generally is you never want to accept the yes, where they're converting it as a courtesy for you into U.S. dollars. You want the conversion to be handled by your financial institution back here in the United States.
And Catherine in Florida says, Clark, your recent show about the 28% rule, about the various expenses potential home buyers should consider when house hunting, stunk up the joint worse than a spraying competition at a skunk convention. How could you not mention the onerous HOA fees? In many cases, HOA fees can be as much as a monthly mortgage payment. And on top of that, many developments assess what's called a CDD, Community Development District fee, every month to pay for all the fancy sports facilities, golf courses, clubhouses, landscaping, and even water slides and playgrounds, whether you use them or not, and whether or not they're located in your particular subdivision within a planned community. I was house hunting recently in Ponte Vedra Beach and was shocked by the CDD fees. They were a deal breaker. Please warn your followers about this.
Well, you just did. We did a segment on another podcast, not the one where I was talking about the old 28% rule, where we were talking about mandatory versus voluntary homeowner associations. The other thing is, you mentioned the CDDs. There's another fee as well that is big in a lot of Florida communities, has been big in Ponte Vedra, where you're talking about, where you, at time of sale, there's a junk fee assessed at that time also that goes back, in many cases, to the original developer who developed the community that someone is doing a subsequent purchase in as like a back-end additional revenue source for the original developer. And those can be substantial money too. So developers are looking for income trails of all different kinds, including often, you were talking about the fees you have to pay, mandatory fees for the amenities. Often those may actually still be owned by a corporation developed by the developer who maintains the amenities in perpetuity as a continuing income source.
Chris in Maryland says, love the show, though it's so fake. How is it that Clark has questions always related to the topic? How is it that he knows all the answers on the fly? You can't tell me he researched the questions before Christa asked them. Just be honest with people. Your show comes off as really scripted. Although Chris says, love the show in the beginning. I will answer this one because I produced this show. It is not scripted. Clark literally does most things on the fly. Right before we start, he'll glance through the questions to make sure there's no additional research needed. And I put the questions in days before we record. And if there's one that's related to a topic, I love to do that. That's just my thing. Do you have anything else to say about that?
Yeah, I don't do well in a scripted environment. No. I have to just be me. And so you think about sometimes when I'll answer a question and then later somebody will post, why didn't you mention this, that, or the other, like we just had there? And so it's more authentic, more genuine if I'm just taking my base of knowledge and years of experience doing this and answering the question rather than, I mean, you're right. If all I'm doing is, if there was a script here, there's no script here. I can see, oops.
You can see
I just knocked over my Pepsi Zero.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, go ahead. Keep going.
So there's just here, it just has the question, says, like here's one, Justin from Illinois. And I see some of the question that you're going to read.
Oh, you never see the Clark Stinks before. You only see them as we're going.
No, so
you read through it. Okay. That's good. I mean, it's true.
Can I have that paper towel?
I'm going to read.
For the YouTube people, you get to see.
I'm going to read
I
Justin's.
get to clean up my own messes that I create.
As you said, the next one's from Justin in Illinois. Can you listen while you clean?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Clark smells worse than a tailgate porta-potty in the fourth quarter. That's nasty.
Ooh.
It's time to set the record straight on college versus NFL football. Although the NFL surely has better talent, college football provides a far better fan experience. From student sections and bands to long-standing game day traditions, entire towns shut down on game day, and the tailgating is legendary. Let's not forget the weekly updated top 25, which can make for some incredible upsets, which lead to fans rushing the field and an occasional goalpost torn down. If that's not enough to let me take a shot at the below the belt, as in your wallet, the average lowest cost NFL ticket is $156 versus around $100 for college, the average of all P4 conference teams. I invite you to heed your own words, to save more, spend less, and don't be ripped off by the inferior fan experience and higher price tag that the NFL offers.
Okay, so just so you know, Justin, this is the same argument my son and I have all the time. That he says that I just don't get it, that the college experience at a game is just so much more fun than the NFL game experience. And so you've said it. He says it to me every single week.
All right. Noelle in Alabama says, hey, Clark, you stink more than the litter box my 15-year-old swore he cleaned last week. Just kidding. You smell peachy. But just to inform your listeners about why the person's credit card was refused in Europe. The point is, we barely use credit cards. We don't have credit scores as a specific number, just a general check to see if we have a history of non-payment. We don't need them to build credit and have a healthier attitude toward money. We're taught from birth that if you can't afford it, you can't have it. So we use debit cards because what's in your account is your limit. We have great protections on our cards, and we can do chargebacks if the product or service was not as advertised, and tap to pay is limited to 50 euros per transaction with a maximum of 3 transactions before you have to enter a PIN to verify the card is yours. The max you could lose if your card is lost is 150 euros. This is the Irish way. I can't speak for all Europeans, but we do have a system called SEPA, S-E-P-A, which is Europe-wide and offers banking protections and communication across every European bank. All in all, I think it's just a cultural difference. Why borrow money when you don't need to?
Well, I love your post, and I'm glad you listen in Ireland. So the reason that you hear me talk badly about debit cards is there's nothing inherently bad about a debit card. It's only because the banks use their corrupt influence in Congress to prevent consumer protections equivalent for a debit card would exist for a credit card. Many of us would be far better off using a debit card rather than a credit card because it would eliminate the ability to go into debt, just as you said. So if we could get adequate consumer protections in place, then me calling a piece of trash fake Visa or fake MasterCard would not be an expression I'd use for the debit card anymore if, in fact, there were adequate protections, like, as you have pointed out so well, exist in Europe where credit and debit both have consumer protections, and that equal event does not happen in the United States. Thank you, everyone, for taking time to post today on Clark Stinks. What I marvel at is that every single edition of Clark Stinks is different. The topics brought up, the things that maybe I've gotten lazy about, or that I really haven't thought about, or that maybe I'm just wrong about, that it's so good for me to get that feedback from you. And I appreciate you taking the time to post each and every Clark Stinks that you post. Coming up ahead, I want to tell you why the TV ads I'm seeing during football, college or NFL, stink. So none of us here, for those of you who watch the YouTube show, none of us here, Sally, Christa, or I, Grace, if she were not on vacation right now, would be able to give me one to hold. None of us carry iPhones. But this isn't a knock on the iPhone. It's a knock on how the big three cell phone carriers use the latest intro of the iPhone, now the 17, as a way to con you into a terrible, awful, overpriced, crazy expensive cell phone plan. You know, if you go in the Wayback Machine, the funny thing during sports was there were two kinds of ads. There were beer ads and what were the other? Oh, car ads. Beer ads and car ads were what you saw, one after another, after another, after another, after another. Now, what do you see? You see insurance company ads and cell phone company ads. And so they're all touting, get your new iPhone 17 free. What is it you're really getting? You're getting a handcuff to a terrible, awful, rotten deal from the big three. Because what they do is they way overcharge for monthly service. And you're not getting the phone free, you're getting credits. As long as you jump through every hoop they have, you're getting credits month by month by month over multiple years, where ultimately the phone ends up being net zero to you. But in return, you have so overpaid for monthly service that you could easily bought your phone anyway. That's the game. That's the gimmick. And that's what they're up to, is using the lure of the latest, greatest phone as a way to get you into one of these long-term, basically contracts where you're way overpaying. So if you look at the discounters, many of which are owned by the big three, the cost of monthly service is as little as a third what it is buying it from the brand name itself. A third. So all that difference is more than what you're saving on the newest phone. So think about that before you do it. As for all those auto insurance things, I got something I'm going to talk about sometime soon about how none of those companies that advertise wall to wall with all those cute ads, that none of those are actually high quality in terms of service to the customer on survey after survey. But that's for another time.
Okay, we'll go to questions. Blanca in Florida says, in the last year, I've received multiple texts regarding a property that does not belong to me, inquiring if I would sell it. I did some research regarding the property and found that there are 2 owners associated with the property in question. One of the owners has my same last name. The property currently is not for sale, and it's located in a different county from where I live. I had my phone number for many years. Which government platform can I reach out to assist me to determine if there's any fraud involved and why my number is affiliated with this property?
So they found your number. I don't know, Blanca, what your last name is, but if your last name is a more unusual one, then that may be somebody who's just prospecting, trying to find their way to one of the property owners. This is not normally a concerning situation. The problem is usually the other way, where somebody is impersonating the actual owner of a property, trying to steal the equity out of it or steal ownership of it. In your case, this is not something I would worry very much about. But if you are worried in any way, shape, form, or fashion about potential of somebody impersonating you, that's why you hear me obsessed with credit freeze. And if you don't have your credit files frozen, I would do so. But before you would freeze your credit files, which is free to do, you can see how to do it at clark.com/credit freeze. Go to Credit Karma, set up a Credit Karma account, then freeze your credit files. You'll be able to monitor what's going on in your name so many different ways. And once your credit's frozen, it's hard for anybody to get credit pretending to be you anyway.
Louise in Georgia says, though my credit has always been in the 800s, the past year it's dropped as low as 769 and nothing has changed. I owe no money on anything. I pay my one credit card in full every month. I haven't bought anything valuable like a car, a house, etc. All my credit reporting companies are frozen, so no one is behind my back buying stuff. How can I find out why this is happening?
Okay, so first of all, if what it's dropped to is 769, rest easy, you're in great shape. My credit score that I monitor regularly, because we get so many questions about credit, has moved as much as 90 points in the last year, up and down. And it is normal that based on the snapshot, and there's not just one credit score you have, there are many different scoring models, and each credit bureau has different data on you. So you could have a different FICO score on the same scale from all 3 different credit bureaus. Then you got the Vantage scores, and you have specialty scores for applying for a car loan, applying for a mortgage, all these specialty scores. So I wouldn't worry about that. But what I would do is I'd go to annualcreditreport.com, and for free you can get copies, a full detailed copy of your Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian credit reports. And you can look through them and see if anything's on any of the 3 of them that shouldn't be there. Because what can happen, even with your credit frozen, is that information of someone same or similar name to yours can marry into your file. And something can be there that's lowered your score from in the 800s to the upper 700s. It could be something as simple as something of somebody else's that is not as good as how you maintain your credit, could accidentally be a stray item on one or more of your 3 credit files. Again, when you get to annualcreditreport.com, they're going to try to sell you all kinds of junk. Don't buy anything. Just get your free credit files.
And then with that one credit card you use, Louise, I would also look on that credit card site at if they offer a credit score. Mine usually will say factors affecting your score. Like there may be some clue in there too, just to see first. Jared in Indiana says, I have an idea for my HSA and I would like your advice. I'm 36. I make $56,000 base, $70K depending on overtime. Currently, I'm maxing out my HSA, Roth IRA, and contributing 9%. 6% is me, 3% my employer. So there's $17,200 of room in my Roth 401k. I'm hoping to utilize my HSA as a retirement account. At age 65, I don't like it that I would then there would then be another taxable 401k for non-medical expenses. So I want to reimburse my medical expenses now and increase my Roth 401k contributions, getting that money into the Roth 401k instead. When I retire, then that money would be tax-free and it wouldn't face income tax. I would also be able to access that money at either 55 or 59 and a half. So is this kooky or do I have something here?
Okay, so that may have been a little hard for people to follow. So let me lay this out, Jared. So what you're saying is you're putting money into the HSA as a tax-free, additional tax-free account, and then in retirement that you'll withdraw money not for medical expenses but for living expenses, and then you'll have to pay tax on the HSA money. That's not the design of investing money over the years in an HSA. In retirement, we all end up with a lot of medical expenses as we move through our retirement years. The out-of-pocket medical expenses go up. With an HSA, if you use the HSA in retirement for only medical expenses, not only have you gotten a tax break up front, had the money grow tax-free all through the working years, then in retirement, when you spend it on eligible medical expenses, you spend it tax-free. That's the design. You don't use the HSA as another retirement account. Use it for medical expenses in retirement. If that's not your plan for the HSA, then what you're thinking of doing makes perfect sense. That you would increase your contribution to the Roth 401k. You build up a tax-free pile of money to use in your retirement years, and then you'd have to use that money for medical bills, but it would have grown and be spent tax-free. The HSA is a more specialized kind of environment where you're building up the tax-free money to use tax-free specifically for medical expenses.
And then I'm just throwing in this extra fun one from Therese in Colorado. Dear Christa, I heard on a recent CH episode how you're betting on which football team will win that week's game. Here's how I won when I had to make picks for a friend who was unable to one week. Not knowing much about each of the team's win or losses, I chose the winner based on where I'd prefer to live. Guess what? I won that week's picks. No statistics needed. And I met someone the other day who has his dog make his picks for him. Like he'll put two teams on a bone. Like he'll put a picture and then chooses which one the dog, whichever one the dog chooses wins. I like that.
What I get a kick out of are the sports reporters who live in this world all year long, and then they make their predictions based on the spread, which is what you're doing often, although you're often doing it straight up.
Oh, yeah, it's just straight up what I do.
But their winning percentages are usually not that high for people who live in that world all the time. So doing something randomized, well, it may work out for you.
Yeah, you never know.
So all these betting pools you're in illegally gambling.
I'm in one pool. I paid $85 for the whole NFL season because I wanted to be more interested in the games. My dad likes watching the NFL and stuff. And so each week you pick winners and losers.
Yes.
There's 30-something people in it. And then each week you could win, I think it's $130 a week or something. So if I win once, just once, although statistics are not good in terms of whether I'm going to win or not. I almost won the first one.
But how do you pick?
I let my friend pick for me. He's much more knowledgeable.
And by the way,
but I pick a couple based on if I know someone, like if someone played for BC and is on that team now, I'll pick that team.
All right, so you're for those of you watching the YouTube show, you see Christa's wearing a color that could be Eagles fan or could potentially be a Jaguars fan. Is this just randomized and has nothing to do with
Totally
picking for a
random. Totally random. Nothing to do with that.
You were looking at me like you didn't know
I didn't
the
know what
team
you were.
colors.
I don't really.
Okay.
This is why I want to be more interested, and it's worked. I love watching the games now. It's fun for me. It's given me the fun enjoyment that I wanted. But I peter out by, the Sunday, the second set of games. If I know there's no way I'm winning that week, I lose interest.
You're no longer interested. Well, I've always said that I'll watch even a bad NFL game. Mm-hmm. Recently, there was a Monday night with 2 Monday night games instead of the normal one. Mm-hmm. Both games were so bad that I turned them both off.
What?
Yeah. So
Are you okay?
I'm a liar.
Wow.
I'm a liar. I said I will watch even a bad NFL game. Those 2 were so bad. Couldn't do it. Anyway, speaking of streaming, as you alluded to earlier, Monday, I'm going to talk some more about streaming TV and some simple choices with the new price increases coming from a number of streaming services. The things you can do to stretch every dollar and fight back against the new higher prices. And it doesn't involve stealing content.